What's up, everybody? This is Emmanuel at Gamble Quest, and we're still on our tournament series. I know a lot of people are gearing up to go play some tournaments in Vegas for the World Series of Poker, and we're going to get some tips and strategy from Jonathan Little. He's been around the game for a long time. Let's take a listen to what he has to say.
Let's get right to it. Tip number 1 is to play tight early on, especially in big pots when your opponent wants to put a lot of money in the pot. You cannot win in the first level, but you certainly can lose. Understand that stealing the blinds is relevant, but actually not all that valuable early in a tournament when you're playing 200 or 300 big blinds deep. So your main concern early in a tournament is to just hang out and see what your opponents are doing. You want to figure.
That's a really good point. Early in the tournament, the blind levels are not that big, so you taking a few blinds here and there, it's not worth it. So he's saying maybe don't get involved so much early in the tournament. And another thing is, Daniel Elias said the same thing in the video I made yesterday, is observe your opponents. Take a look at their tendencies, the patterns, their betting patterns, whether they betting big in certain hands or small with certain hands. Let's keep listening.
Out their tendencies so you can take advantage of them later in the tournament when a whole lot more money is on the line. Now, when I say you want to play tightly, I don't mean you want to only play the absolute best hands before the flop. You actually should splash around in tiny pots with hands that have the potential to turn into very strong hands after the flop. These are going to be hands like small pairs, suited aces, and suited connectors. And essentially, you want to look to stack your opponent. You want to win all their money when you make a hand that can beat pocket aces after the flop. A lot of your opponents will play kind of tightly pre-flop, but then they drastically overplay those hands after the flop. If they get any overpair, they may just load their 200 big blind stack in the pot. And if you're sitting there playing hands that can make straights and flushes, and you make a straight or flush, and your opponent's trying to get all the money in, that's fantastic, and you can get a double up early on very frequently. But you have to make sure that you are not the player who is overplaying hands like top pair or an overpair. Tip number 2 is to raise often and to raise using a small size. Do not open limp. That means do not just call the big blind if you are the first player to enter the pot. Now, if players just call the big blind before you, you can certainly call behind with that range of hands that stands to beat a hand like pocket aces. You do not want to be limping behind with king 7 offsuit. That's just asking for trouble. But, king 7 suited is a little bit better. It's a hand that can make a very good flush. Obviously, you'd rather have suited aces, suited connectors, pairs.
I want to stop it right there and bring up a point about limping. I don't know much about tournaments, but I know it's about preservation, lasting, and I would think personally it wouldn't be anything wrong with limping. You're investing a little bit of money to see the flop. If you get raised and you really don't like your hand, you can get rid of it. But he knows better than me. He's a professional tournament player. He's been coaching for a lot longer. But I'm not sure if I agree with that in my mind. And there's nothing wrong to disagree with people, even if they have better experience. Maybe they'll explain it to me further, and I'll maybe have to experience it for myself. But let's continue listening.
Etc. When you're first to act, though, when you're the first one who could potentially raise, if your hand is good enough to play, you should be raising it. Especially as stacks start to get a little bit shallower, like 50 big blinds and shorter, you're going to want to raise to 2 or 2.5 big blinds. And as your position improves, as you get closer to the button, as you get closer to acting last, before and after the flop, you should play a much wider range. You can play substantially wider when you are on the button compared to when you are first to act. So make sure you take advantage of your position. Tip number 3 is to defend your big blind often, perhaps more often than you may be accustomed to. And that's because in a tournament, at least compared to a cash game, there's an ante in play in most tournaments today, and there's also no rake taken out of any individual pot. And this allows you to defend your big blind quite wide when it's just you and the initial raiser. Now, if it's you and a raiser and a caller and a caller and a caller, you actually have to be a little bit tighter in the big blind, even though you're getting better pot odds because your junky hands like king 6.
I just want to stop it right there real quick. Defending your big blind, that makes sense to me because you already got money invested. and it's going to cost you, especially if people only raising the 2 big blinds or 2.5 big blinds, it only costs you a extra blind to get in the hand. So that makes a lot of sense to me, defending your big blind. But yeah, I just want to listen to a couple things I'm trying to learn about tournaments, and Jonathan Little gives out some very good information. All right, thank you for watching. See you next time.
Look at how you would play